All right, next up is, if you remember, we did, gosh, I don't know if we did it or not, but I want the next button in this scenario not to show up until the learners have clicked tab 1, tab 2, or tab 3, and in any order for that matter. And we do that simply by going, well, not simply, but first things first, if you look at the way we did this comic strip, that is very easy to do because as far as I went, what did I do? As far as I went all the way down to bottom left, yes. Okay, so I have that. So I can put a button in here now. Let's see, I'll put it down here. That will show up only when it's in this layer. So that's really easy to control, that there is no next button until they get to this block, whereas in your scenario, there would be no next button until they get to the bottom right. I just don't have mine as complete as yours. So that's a good thing, right? So I'm going to put this in here and then say next. So now we understand that, right? So they'll be in this one, they'll make a decision, then this one, yada, yada. And then when they get to here is when, I'm going to go ahead and add a, let's see, that. When they get to here, that's when they know they can click next to go on to the next slide. So we have them captivated. They have stuff to do on the slide until they get here. Then they know what to do. On this one, it's a little bit more difficult, correct? Because we don't want them to skip any of these tabs. We don't want that next button to show up until things are where they're supposed to be. So first things first, I'm going to pop this over here just because that's what I say to do, right? So I'm going to copy that and I'll put that down here. Command V. So there's a few things that we need to do now. First is, as we've discussed before, this button cannot show up until we want it to show up, right? So I'm going to go back over into my states, and we know that we have options here, right? But I don't want to get this all crowded over here. I don't want my trigger panel to be all crowded because you know that we can say if we wanted, change the state. Right now I don't have it named, but here it is, button 1. You see it in red on the bottom right there. Button 1 to hidden, not when anything happens, but when the timeline starts. And then, of course, in the last one, we pick the timeline, and the timeline is the name of the slide here, which is tabbed. So that would make sense, right? So the moment this starts, I'm going to go ahead and preview this slide. The moment that timeline starts, meaning that playhead moves, that next button goes away. That's perfectly acceptable, and that is okay. But look how busy it is over here already, right? So we want to minimize stuff like that. We don't generally want to put a trigger over here if we don't have to. So I'm going to remove that. Yes, I'm sure. And then I want to be efficient and actually change this. I'm going to change it to next underscore BTN. And instead of doing a trigger, what I want to do is go to states and not edit any state, because right now everything's fine. But see the initial state that we discussed? I can send that to hidden in the initial state, which grays it out, which lets me know it's there, right? But when I go to preview it, it's not there. And the best part about that is it doesn't add anything additional over here. You saw before it added a whole nother busyness, per se, over here. Now I don't have to do that. So try to use those built-in things as much as possible. And then while we're here, I want to make sure that this trigger actually goes. Jump to slide. Next slide, we need to click button 1. Okay, timeline. Next. And EX2. Okay. So now the idea is this. Do not show this next button until all 3 of these tabs have been visited. Okay? So we just made exactly what we want to do by doing nothing more than speaking out loud, right? So I need to do what? I need to set a visited state. I go to my state of that button, and because we used a built-in button, you see that we do in fact have a visited state. I want the user to know that they've been there. So just like we did in Captivate, I'm going to go down, I'm going to edit the state, I'm going to go to visited, and since it's blue, so visited is blue, we know anything I do here, let's see, I'm just going to pick gray, done editing states, go to tab 2, edit states, visited is blue, pick the gray up here, done editing states, tab 3, edit states, visited is blue, go to gray, done editing states. Okay? So now when I preview this slide, it's probably going to do exactly what you think, just like in Captivate. Tab 1, see it turned gray, turned gray, turned gray. Cool? So that is maybe not the most ideal because it's turning gray as we're active, but you're going to get the point here, and then you can change accordingly. But here's the deal. We've again just said, well, when the heck do we want that next button to show? Not until all three of these are in the visited state. We know that now. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to go to this trigger. And here's my trigger wizard. And it says action jump to slide. No, what I want to do is change the state of that object, which is the next button. You can see I named it next button and it's got that red box, to normal. But I don't want it to change when the timeline starts, right? I want it to change when the state of all three of those are visited. So when, I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to cruise down, and there you can see right there, state. So that's fantastic. I'm going to click on state, and then it says all of. And I have an option here. I can say all of, any of, none of. I want all of them. So I do not want that to show up until all of those have been visited. So I'm going to click all of. And then it's going to ask me all of what? So I get to pick. Like if I had 900 things on this slide, it would have all 900 things listed. I just have to make sure that I click tab 1, I click tab 2, and I click tab 3. And now it's going to ask me R what though. So it's R, right now it's set to normal. We know that I want that to be visited. So I have that visited. I click OK. And now we check. Preview this slide. Tab 1 is now visited, no next button. Tab 2 is now visited, no next button. Tab 3 is now visited, here appears the next button. It's that easy and that clean and nice. So I'm going to go ahead and say close preview. That is tabbed part 2.